Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Robert Stickle, and I'm also joined by my colleague Paul Estabrooks. Paul will be today's presenter, and we'll discuss the topic of what does Agile PPM mean to the modern PMO? This webinar is the third in a recent series of Agile webinars, so if you enjoyed today's video, feel free to watch the others on our channel and look towards the next installment, which we'll be releasing soon. And as always, I hope that today's presentation grants you some insight into the world of project and portfolio management and gets you excited for the new developments happening within the industry and here at Oneplan. Thank you again, and I'll now turn the presentation over to Paul.
Thank you very much, Robert. I'm going to walk through a few slides to start and talk through topics, and then I'll do a demo of our Oneplan solution and how it addresses this requirement, and then I'll wrap up with a few comments at the end. So today's agenda, I'm going to talk through some of the challenges that we see with customers today in dealing with this sort of influx of agile approaches along with the traditional waterfall and how do you fit all that together. We'll talk about what unified work management looks like and dive a little deeper into what Gartner often calls the adaptive PPM scenario or use cases. So we're going to walk through that. Then I'm going to demo some of those concepts in our solution. We'll come out, we'll look at some value and benefits of why taking that approach makes a lot of sense. And I'll wrap up with some next steps regarding trials and other demos and other things that people might be interested in. So that's today's journey. Just a quick conversation about us. So we are Oneplan, we are a Microsoft partner, and we are consistently recognized for our leadership in this space. So we just recently won the Partner of the Year for PPM once again, having won it also in 2019. And we were a finalist for the Power Apps and Power Automate Award. In addition, we are a scaled Agile partner for our solution. So we come at this with a lot of experience in the Microsoft project management space, in the traditional space, but also in these more advanced capabilities with respect to Agile. So the team has certifications in both, and we bring that expertise to bear in what we're going to talk about and show you today. So what are today's challenges? The biggest thing that we see, and certainly the pandemic has highlighted this, is this rapid transition from traditional businesses to the more common ones. This is a slide we use often to show how things have evolved in our lifetime from the traditional business model or brick and mortar, if you will, in some of the cases on this screen, to the more modern techniques and things around online capabilities, cloud capabilities, and the sort of flattening of the world in terms of what you can get access to and how quickly you can get information or products or any of those types of things, and the pressure that puts on all businesses of all types. So there's this need to react to that. So what we see when we talk to our customers and when you look at industry analysis is that the speed with which we need to innovate has accelerated immensely. There are much higher expectations from customers with respect to response times, shipping and delivery timeframes, access to information or to the products themselves. There's this demand for simplicity, to keep things simple, to keep things moving quickly. There's an increased competition because it's not just local anymore. Competition can be, it's very global in terms of what we can access and have shipped to our door as opposed to what we need to go to a location to get. So the competitors are different. They might be coming from a different industry and they're evolving into a sort of emerging space. We see that in our own business. Or they are from a different location where that never used to be the challenge. The time for a business to get to value is changing. We need to get value much quicker. We need to be able to show incremental change and incremental improvement much faster than what we used to do. And we have to adapt to a constant change. The last year and a half or so has taught us that in ways we couldn't possibly have imagined. So this is what we see in every organization, whether it's government or whether it's private sector, whether it's large enterprise customers or even our smaller customers, they're all facing variations on this theme. So the traditional scenario that you'd often see is the sort of brick wall of challenges that organizations run into, is complex environments and response time challenges and sort of set ways of doing things, disconnected systems. We see that a lot. Silos in terms of approaches to things. And how does that achieve what we just talked about on the previous slide? It often becomes a barrier. And then we also see that there's sort of these two almost competing techniques. If you look at that slide on the left, a lot of the stuff that's sort of on the front-facing tiles is a more traditional thing. It's all about governance and structure, whereas the stuff down the right is sort of the counter to that in terms of how we react more quickly to things. And I'll call out work management. We're not, these days, we don't look at strictly as what's in a schedule as being the key item. It's all the things that a person might need to do that aren't necessarily a task in a schedule. Yes, that's a big part of them, but there's so many other things that drive their behavior, their ability to get things done, and frankly, the things they need to be working on. So how do you capture that and still provide that governance and still be able to do proper planning and be able to predict when things are ready to go to market or go to production or what have you, yet be able to turn on a dime, be able to react quickly. So it's this sort of dichotomy and this sort of dual challenge that we face. So what we see out of that is this rapid rise of people adopting Agile, and I'll almost put Agile in air quotes, because how people adopt it, what they consider Agile, what pieces of the various Agile techniques that they choose to adopt, which ones they choose, differs from organization to organization. But we've seen, and you can see this sort of statistics on the screen, this rapid increase in adoption of Agile. In response to those challenges, we need to be able to move quicker. So we'll use an Agile approach. And again, each organization sort of puts their own spin on it. Agile has gone from being predominantly a software development approach initially to IT more generally, but as you see on that left graph, it's starting to go down through other business units who look at it and say, we too need to be able to respond more quickly. We need to adjust to change. We need to be able to take an incremental or program increment type approach to things and roll stuff out quickly, get to value faster, and we want to adopt these techniques. And you can see on the right, the things that are driving it and the motivations, they map back quite well to that slide a couple of slides ago. You know, changing priorities, acceleration of things, improved productivity, you know, faster time to market, all those sort of themes start to come up in what we're seeing, why people are doing this, and we're now seeing it permeate a broader set of groups within an organization than just the traditional software development, where, you know, it certainly has a very big foothold. As you scale that up, you start to see all these different techniques or models start to appear. But there isn't really a clear winner. Obviously, Scaled Agile is by far the leader in this particular chart in this study. But there isn't a clear winner. And what we often see with organizations is a bit of a pick list. They've chosen items from some of these or themes from some of them, and that's what they're following as opposed to a full adoption of any one of them. So there's this broad landscape of approaches as part of this. So it's not really a one size fits all. What that leads to is this concept you'll hear a lot about, digital transformation. And you'll see a lot of organizations going from that green circle on the right, and they're journeying their way to what we call in our organization, we'll often use the term shifting left towards that Agile Portfolio Management, whether it's Scrum or SAFe or some other technique that they want to adopt. But what we find in the marketplace, and industry analysts that we talk to would back up this, very few organizations make it wholly over to that left side, and that's okay. The vast majority end up somewhere between the green and the dark blue in this adaptive portfolio management space where we blend Agile and modern things in our background, you know, in our PMO, the waterfall techniques. So in that middle, there's this sort of continuum. Some organizations have a little bit of Agile capabilities for some very specific lines of business and a broader sort of adoption of waterfall generally. Others shift much closer to a full Agile, but still do cater to some waterfall scenarios or business units that require that. And that's okay. It's finding that place in that continuum that works for your organization and getting really crisp and really good at doing what you need to do, blending these approaches where it makes sense. So we're going to explore sort of a lot in that middle space because the vast majority of organizations, that's where they're living and that's where they're trying to get to, and that's where they will reside once they're done that transformation or their transformation. So that's what we're going to talk about, is unified work management. So there's projects and organizations that need that sort of long cycle, long PPM approach, the traditional models that we've implemented for years with our customers. And then there's those who want to get much quicker and cycle times, as we've talked about, and want to use an Agile approach. but very few can kind of pick only one or the other. They have to bring these two together. What we also see in organizations, if we sort of pan out a little bit, and this is actually a client who did the study internally, is if you go across the different business units and the different functions, you'll see a plethora of tools being used to satisfy these requirements. And as you read through the tool names, you can infer from some of them what approach they might be taking. And you could certainly see groups there that follow aspects of an agile approach and those that do not. And that's very normal for what we would see in a lot of our client organizations. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing saying they should all transition to a specific approach and adopt one methodology. What we're arguing is they shouldn't necessarily. It's okay to be adaptive. So we're trying to find the right balance between governance, that oversight and that structure, the ability to sort of manage budgets and control finances and keep things under control, and that ability to be very agile and go quick to market, to innovate, to respond to changes, and be nimble. So those two things often work at counter to each other. So how do you find that right blend? So this is the adaptive PPM story. It's blending those two worlds together while creating some commonality where you want for demand management or portfolio analytics, resource and financial management, being able to talk a common language, being able to capture things like time and task updates in a common way, regardless of which methodology is being followed, and then being able to glean other information from that and learn from what's going on across the portfolio, if you will, of all of the things we're trying to do. So when we see that sort of structured, you'll see that at the portfolio level, we have a portfolio, and then we might have a multitude of programs, a sort of standard portfolio program, and then project, if you will, level. And then down at the project level, you may have a combination of projects and agile projects, or epics, or some other term that you might be using in an agile methodology, blended together, working together, ultimately to accomplish specific goals and objectives that you've set as an organization, that you've mapped those programs and portfolios to, regardless of how you want to deliver and what makes sense for each of those teams, but still be able to roll that up and provide that overarching structure that we need to understand where we are we on track, are we within budget, and those sorts of key criteria. So walking through that, and I'm going to demo a bunch of this stuff here in a few minutes, but some of those core capabilities, I want to be able to see that portfolio in a hierarchy, whether that's an epic, a portfolio, a project, and all those different pieces. I want to be able to see them and how they work with each other, how they roll up to what we're trying to accomplish. I want to be able to continuously do alignment and prioritization. And I may do that in a traditional fashion, as you see in that screenshot on the right, or I may want to use some of the more modern techniques like Kanban boards and start to do program increment type planning and approaches to how I want to structure my work. But I need to be able to look at that in all those different perspectives, regardless of the methodology being followed. So out of that, I need to be able to support traditional project delivery. And you see here, you've got project for the web, and planner, different approaches that people may want to take. And I need to be able to engage those audiences and bring their information in and be able to provide them with direction and guidance and structure, but also take from them the information we need to make business decisions at the portfolio and program level. Likewise, Agile tooling. We need to be able to connect with those Agile tools, whether it's Jira or Azure DevOps or one of the other ones, because that's where they want to manage their backlogs, and that's where they should. They want to be able to do iteration and sprint planning there, and they want to be able to use boards to plan out those projects and those initiatives and sprints. So we need to be able to engage that audience as well and meet them where they are. And that enables a couple of core components here. Resource management. If I want to be able to do capacity planning, regardless of whether a resource is being assigned to a set of sprints or to tasks in a project schedule, there's still only the one resource. So if you need them on one of those initiatives, regardless of how it's being delivered, we need to be able to have a clear understanding of our capacity, and we need to be able to request resources and negotiate and get the resources that we need. Likewise, we need to be able to do scheduling, excuse me, and that may be at the detailed task level or at the sprint level or at a feature level or wherever works for your organization, but we have to have that common language. Then we need to be able to capture status information, whether that's in timesheets or in my work or just a work progress thing. And that time entry needs to be not just tasks, as we would often have done, if you're using a PPM tool, but maybe it's backlog items. Maybe it's an issue or a risk or a change request. It's items outside of the conventional task. This gets into that work management challenge I highlighted earlier. How do we capture all forms of work and have a clearer picture of what are our resources working on, how is that progressing, and where are the issues we should be trying to resolve or the roadblocks we should be trying to clear? And then ultimately we need to be able to analyze the data that we're capturing. So time entry becomes very important, however you choose to do it at whatever level of depth, because it's not just the conventional project schedule that you're working with. And then that also works with our financial management. So again, some projects may be delivered with an agile methodology. They still need to have a budget. They still have costs associated with them, whereas project schedules can have all kinds of rich detail in that area. So how do we get to a common language to be able to capture budgets, to do investment analysis, and again, portfolio optimization when it comes to our budgets and where we can spend money and where we have available budget within a portfolio or a program or by time. So understanding all that across those two methodologies. And then lastly, all the rich intelligence we want to be able to capture with Power BI in our case is being able to look at how we're doing in agile type dashboards or reporting across every project or personalizing a dashboard to look at the things that I need to know for my job and my function here and what I am responsible for. So to summarize, and then I'm going to jump into a demo. We see tool proliferation in almost every organization that we talk to, and most organizations these days are dealing with a variety of methodologies. Most have this challenge, and part of the conversation they're having with us is, how do I get these two groups talking together? How do I get my arms around everything that's out there, and where does it fit? And that's what I want to demo today using some of the screenshots that you just saw. So the goal here is to bring those worlds together, provide common structure around corporate goals and portfolios and those core components, while allowing the organization and those different business units to operate with the methodology of choice that makes sense for them and delivering the projects that they want. So let's jump into a demo. I'm going to do this demo actually inside Teams. So I just happened to grab this environment. So you can see I'm in a PMO for an adaptive PMO here in Teams, in a Teams group. So I'm just going to close that up so I have a little bit more space. And here where we start, we're on the home page, and right away we have these insights into some of the things that Daniel, who I'm logged in as, needs to do. So we're bringing forward some of that insights and information about what's going on in Daniel's world and some of the things that he needs to be aware of. He has some overdue tasks and an overdue timesheet and so forth. So there's some structure here, some governance, but we're not tied to, he is working on, as we get into this, he's working on some projects that follow a sprint methodology and some that don't, but they're all appearing in his tasks that he needs to update, whether that's in my work or in my timesheet. So we're bringing that information together. He doesn't need to go to multiple tools in disparate systems and status each of that information in its own way. We can do that here, and we'll push that information out where it makes sense. I'm going to jump into the portfolio. I'm just going to switch my view here just to the portfolio summary. There we go. And I'm going to expand that. We saw a little bit of this in the screenshot, but this is sort of where this adaptive PPM story really comes to life. Is I have a series of portfolios. I have two portfolios in here, and each one has a couple of programs within it. And inside those programs are a combination of projects being delivered by and large in a waterfall fashion, and I'll dive into that a little bit deeper, and then some epics that are being delivered in an agile methodology. And then within that, there are a couple of projects in here, you'll see the two right at the top, who are both connected to Project Pro, but they're also connected to DevOps. So even within that project is the blending of these two methodologies. There's the conventional waterfall that's driving that support customers using mobile project, but within that, there are components that are being done in Azure DevOps and we are connected to that as well, so that the project team can see where's the work being done, what's a backlog item, and what's a task and a schedule, so that we have complete line of sight, yet allowing the components of that project, the team, to operate in the way that makes the most sense for them based on their job function and their approach, or the methodology that that business unit is following. So very quickly, we can see this here. As I dive into this project, I like to pick on this one, grab some detailed information to start. You can see we've got a bunch of information. This particular project is a part of a program and a portfolio, as we just showed. It's also a link to some objectives and key results, so we've had that tie back to it. It isn't in JIRA, so it doesn't have a JIRA name, but we are also tracking timesheets are open to everyone, and we're going to do task level. So we have some other information here, and you'll see that kind of come up in a little bit later. And we have a bunch of other information, including our current health, our prioritization, and where we are in terms of how this project aligns to our organization. And you'll see how that plays out in a bit. As I mentioned in going through those slides, is we have this structure of a budget in here. So this one here has a budget. It has some OpEx and CapEx expenses. So you can see those there phased out by month. Right now, it doesn't matter to me which methodology is being followed to deliver this. In fact, it's aspects of both. But right here, what I'm looking at is the overall resource costs. As you can see, the costs down there, and some other costs we have up at the top for some other things that we might need in terms of supplies and contracts and so forth. And that can be structured as you need it to be with your own cost categories and descriptions and so forth. We can also then look at, that's budget. We also have in here the ability to look at a forecast. So as the project now kicks off, is it mapping to its budget, or do we need to move money around as part of the forecast to show maybe something has started a little bit later, or is coming on stronger earlier than we thought, and so forth. And likewise, we can pull in actuals. So that may be actuals from a financial system, and we'll talk a little bit more about integration, or it may be actuals coming from the timesheet to draw that data in so we can see how are we tracking based on what we thought we were going to be doing. Again, inside this project there are two different methodologies or aspects of them being used, but we're here able to talk a common language. When we get to our resource plan, a similar view appears. We now can look at our resource, and this one we're looking at commitments, or let's call that demand. For this particular project, what is the demand that I need for these different resources? Some of these resources, like they might be a stable team here. If you're using, Scaled Agile or something, and you want to use a stable team, you might have that represented here to show when that team will be involved in the sprints that they might be working on and where that volume of work will appear, because that will help us understand what how that fits against other work they're being asked to do. You can also see here we have generic resources, and we also have named resources, so that we can map out future demand while also looking at sort of named demand that we have and people that have been assigned to the project, so that we know what we're working with. So we have committed, we have scheduled, where we can pull that data out of a schedule, and then we have the information that would come back from a timesheet, so we can compare those to see how did our commitment match up against our timesheet later. Are we on track? Is some work going too long? Some work maybe not getting done as quickly as we want, it's delayed, or it's requiring more effort than we expected. Be able to draw out that information. Again, methodology isn't what matters here, it's the volume of work and who the resources are. Now if I get into the work plan, here's where we draw these two worlds together. So this is my schedule. This particular schedule is connected to Project Professional, so I can open it there and drive it. But you can see all of the tasks on this particular schedule are here. What's done, what's not done, and we're interfacing back and forth with Project Professional. So for the PM managing this part of the schedule, here they can manage this in detail in the conventional way. But what's also here is if I go and look at the backlog, these are the items, get that to come up. These are the items that are being done using Azure DevOps. And that's the connected system here, Microsoft Azure DevOps. So we're drawing in this data because for this components of it, that's how it's being managed. The development team that's doing this work, that's where they function, that's where they work. But for the project team to be able to see both and be able to understand both, here they are. I can draw this data in as well. So I'm blending these two worlds into that adaptive space. I'm allowing people to work and function where they need to best and where they can accomplish what they need to do while drawing the data back so that we can make the kind of business decisions that we need to make as an organization. And then that leads to the ability to do a status report all up against the whole project. Where are we? What's getting done? And we're bringing those two worlds together without having to go to multiple business systems and pull in all that information, or in fact, create multiple status reports based on the different pieces of it. I'm going to go back to my portfolio, and some of the other things that we talked about is some of the other ways that we might use this portfolio with all this different work in it. Perhaps I want to get a little closer to an agile approach, or maybe I'm much more deep in terms of adopting it, and I want to be able to manage using boards. So here you can see a board where we have our columns are based on business units. We don't have any lanes turned on in this particular one. We're color coding based on health, so we can quickly see which cards in here are red or yellow and whatnot. But we can also see with using these strings a relationship between different projects, that there is a related relationship between this project and this one down here, and this one's red. So that sort of drives some of what we might want to dig deeper onto. And you can also see that we have budgets aligned in here, so we can see what the budget is for each business unit and their role in this. So you can use this capability if we had stuff in the backlog we don't in this particular view, to drop stuff into either into a business unit or into a stable team if that's what you have represented here, or into a program, or even into a program increment if you're doing that type of planning, where I want these projects are going to go into next quarter into that increment. We'll then start to staff them and build them out. So this gives us that agile flexibility for planning, a little different than the conventional PPM approach. We have a multitude of different boards you can come up with. So if I want to look at goals by program, you can see similar view. So now I've got columns, which are business goals. My lanes are my different programs. And again, those same cards showing up where they fit. And I can analyze and understand what's going on within each program and how things are progressing. Lastly, I may want to look at this in a roadmap view. This is a very popular view. So now I could see all my projects showing in a more conventional time phase structure, but in this case by business unit. So I'm looking at my different projects, again, color-coded based on health. So you can see in IT, there's a couple of projects that are in trouble and how they might relate to other projects and where their key milestones are, and so forth. So we have this type of analysis for business planning. So those who want to follow Agile, you can. We can still represent that, when the sprints are going to occur, and how they relate to other work that we are trying to do as an organization. So here you can see some different dashboards that we have. So if I go and look at my portfolio summary, I can see how the portfolio is performing. We have a wealth of reporting dashboards in here that we can use to analyze and look at that data, understand better how things are progressing, where we are as a portfolio. Perhaps I want to dig into the program. And if you look at these programs, some of these are agile projects and some are waterfall projects, but here they are, and I can do some rich analysis on this. I can do report dashboards strictly on the agile projects and dig into some of the agile specific types of reporting. Likewise with the waterfall. With Power BI and the rich reporting data that we have in here, we have lots of options for how we analyze this information and how we bring these worlds together so that we can make common business decisions and informed business decisions, not locked out by the silos or the different approaches and sort of stuck in the language of those different methodologies. So I jump back here. I just want to show the prioritization. We've shown screenshots on this. Sorry. As you can see here, this is a flattened list of all my projects, and I meant to go through this a minute ago. And so in here, you can see we've got projects and epics. So we have the two different methodologies all listed here and in play. Each of them has mapped against some strategic alignments, and that's produced a score. So we have the traditional methodologies available to us for prioritization, in addition to the board views that I showed a minute ago, where we can drag and drop projects up and down the list and say, we're going to change the stack rank priority of these projects. I moved that one up and then right back so that I can keep it where it was, but I have that ability to move up and down. Or I can use, whether it's financial plans or resource plans, to start to layer into this some constraints that we have as a business. So if I just go and grab our FY21 budget, you'll see I'm 800 or so thousand above plan or above target. I'm also not well aligned with the timing. So I've got two things I need to do. Potentially I want to, well, let's take the on hold projects out and say that they are in fact out. This is sort of a sandbox. And as I do that, you'll start to see I'm getting closer and closer on my budget. I'm very close there, but my timing is still off. So now I could come in and start to look at my projects and say, I'm going to take, that's an active one. I'm going to move that project out. And you'll see what happens is, all right, I've corrected 1 month. I've got a couple more to fix. They're off a little bit. I might want to pull a project earlier if I can. Ignore the dates, obviously. We're midway through the year. That wouldn't make sense to go back in time. But if you were planning out, let's say FY22, then you could start to move things. Do I want to do some of these projects earlier or later? And so there I am. I just moved. That was an Agile Epic, a Jira project that I just moved and delayed it so that it would align better with my budget. I could save that scenario and start to work through, how I enable and activate projects or move things in and out and make the changes based on the scenario that I created. Or I can go and look at this from a resourcing perspective. Because we're capturing that resource data at the level that we're capturing that data across all projects, that commitment or that demand information. So we have a clear picture of our capacity and where we have constraints. You can see here I've got resources that are in red. Some of those resources would be on an agile team and they're doing agile work. Some are traditionally on a waterfall type projects. Some might straddle those two worlds and do a bit of both. But for now, from a resourcing perspective, we have a clear picture of where we have challenges. So we can start to look at potentially, deactivating some projects because clearly we're not going to get some of them done. Or once again, we could start to look at moving projects out to see what that does to our resource pool. And that would start to improve that. I'm not going to move enough here to get that all fixed. But you'd have this ability now based on resource constraints to better understand when and where these projects can go, regardless of which methodology they're following. So it's a lot of flexibility. In this world of adaptive PPM, this is what the expectation is. The expectation is that we can allow people to use their respective methodologies, but still be able to make these types of decisions and this type of analysis, regardless of which side of that house, if you will, that they're in. We can't be sort of locked with these silos and say, I can only see the waterfall project, so I'll make my decisions based on what amounts to half the picture. And then another group's making a different set of decisions based on their half. We need to be able to bring it together, and what I'm showing you here in Oneplan does exactly that. I'll wrap up with some final thoughts on the demo. So this is that hybrid solution, that idea that we can have program and portfolio management and be able to do investment controls and prioritization that I just showed you, while simultaneously allowing those who want to use agile planning and agile tools like Azure DevOps, or those that want to use project and do waterfall scheduling to function and work in the way that they need to. And we'll meet up at the top and we'll make combined decisions in the best interest of the organization, aligned with what you're trying to accomplish, reacting to the market, adjusting where you need to, and then delivering in the methodology that makes the most sense for each case. So the benefits are those exact things. Keep users working in their preferred solutions. We see that all the time. Allow people to have the tool of choice, work where they are, what works for them. For certain groups within an organization, it's very clear which methodology or a tooling they should use. Let them use it, engage them where they are. The big value here we see when we talk to our customers is the improved adoption. For years, we've looked at this and tried to convince people to move to a specific tool and follow a single set of templates and standards and so forth. And that doesn't align with how the world works today, how work management works, what the messaging is in the marketplace, what the expectation is placed on resources to function. So don't do that. Meet them where they are. Drive adoption of the pieces that you need, but give them the capabilities to get their jobs done as best you can. You will experience much better participation and much better collaboration when you do so. So I showed this earlier, and I'm going to just sort of build this out quickly, and now look at it from a tooling perspective. You can see over on the right would be the traditional Microsoft project and tools like that. In the middle is that blend of those different tools. And on the far left, obviously, is the strict Agile tools. What you're seeing with what we've done with Oneplan is our ability to talk to all of those, bring them together. We can build out a Oneplan solution that is very Agile specific, and we can do this certainly the conventional waterfall. But for most organizations, we're going to be somewhere in that middle with some of those tools or all of those tools in play, and we're more than ready and able to bring all that to get together and give you the value that you need. Last point I'll make on integration, I touched on this and I'll sort of just a couple of slides on it quickly. The PPM solution, and Gartner talks a lot about this in their adaptive capabilities, is you need to be able to tie to other core business systems. I mentioned in the demo tying to a financial system to bring in actuals, tying obviously to things like DevOps and Jira or outside systems. And there might be a multitude of others where we have key information that we need to bring in as part of the PPM story. So that ability to provide core capability and then connect to those other business systems to give you the information that you need to make the business decisions that you need to make, to be agile, to be adaptive, to be responsive to the world around you. Integration is key. And we have a product called OneConnect, which provides all of that capability. So we bring together all these different types of systems. And this is a very common conversation with customers, whether it's service management tools in the bottom right, all the work management tools I've already talked about, development tools like Jira and DevOps, or financial management systems is a very popular conversation where we need to either send or capture budgets, bring in actuals, and move timesheet type information potentially back to a financial system to engage that audience in the book of record where it makes sense, but yet provide the PMO the information they need to make decisions and to move forward. So it's an integral part of an adaptive story is this ability to connect to those various other business systems out there that we're seeing businesses use every day. And with that, I'll come to a conclusion. If you want to look at next steps, we offer a couple of different scenarios. On our website, oneplan.ai, you can set up for any number of trials. There is an adaptive template there. There's strategic templates. There's a PSA template. There's lots of different scenarios you may want to trial. Feel free to sign up for a trial and get going. You can also reach out to us. We're happy to do like a roadmap workshop. Here's where I am today, and here's where I want to get to. Can you help me? And we sketch out sort of what that journey might look like. I did a pretty quick demo. You may have specific use cases or scenarios that you want to explore. Please reach out to us through contact@oneplan.ai, and our team will book a one-on-one demo with you to dive deeper on your specific requirements. Really appreciate your time today. I hope this was informative. You will be getting a copy of the slides and the video, this session. Robert will send that out in the next couple of days. I want to thank you very much for your time. And with that, the webinar is over.